What a time to be alive and what a place to be doing it in, but America. Never before in the history of the world has there been such global turmoil without war as what we're seeing right now. Even before the two world wars, it wasn't chaotic like this, and it didn't get like this within society. Everything was pretty copacetic inside of America. Of course, we had the Depression before World War II. There's always some kind of problem going on. Everything's not always perfect. But we've never been torn apart like this inside the country. But the problem we've got right now is that it's all of the Western world that is underneath the same attack by the same people. And unfortunately, Americans don't tend to look at the rest of the world very much. They think all these problems are always American political problems, and that's not the case at all. This is societal. It's in Australia, it's in Europe, it's in Canada. It's societal, and it's all concentrated in the Western nations. People better stop and think about why that is. We're going to dig into it a little bit here. Welcome back to another episode of What They Don't Say. There's always things behind every story that are very important that aren't being said. So that's why we have this channel. Now, this episode here, I'm not making this for the 90% crowd. When you want to reach 90% of the people with a message they'll all enjoy and share, you've really got to dumb it down, because the truth is, there's a lot of people on both sides that really don't have their act together too well. Unfortunately, at least some of the slower people are voting correctly. They're still not going to get into the nuts and bolts. This isn't going to be highly technical, but it's for the thinkers, because the people that only think of what they're told in media, they're not going to connect with us, okay? This is for the thinkers. Appreciate you coming back. What we've got to look at is all these problems. They don't care about any of the issues that these lefties are going crazy about here in America right now. None of them matter. Those people, they're obviously useful idiots. They'll jump from situation to situation, hot topic to hot topic, because the goal is just to make America ungovernable under Trump. They don't care about any of this stuff. Look at how fast they quit hollering about the drug boats getting blown up when they found out that it wasn't catching on in public. Look how fast they gave up on the situation with Trump taking over Venezuela when they couldn't go down there without running into crowds of Venezuelans that were out there partying in the streets, all happy about what's going on. They even quit complaining about Trump taking out the nukes over there in Iran because the world was happy about it. And I tell you, those people, they can change directions mid-stride. They can turn like a scared jackrabbit. They'll go from topic to topic, but the reason they can do that is because they are so well organized. They can send out marching orders at 12:30 at night, and everybody in the Western world has them. Australia, Europe, America, they all come back with the same message the next day. These people have an organizational network that just amazes me. The world has never seen anything like this, where there's an undercurrent of overthrow that is so well organized in all the Western nations, or in any group of nations. It's never happened before. And one of the reasons it's happening now is because people aren't sure how to deal with it. It's not like you can just go out there and make a law and say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. The current laws that we've got are definitely not being applied as they should. That would help a lot. It's like these politicians like Waltz, Newsom, Fry, Karen Bass. All these people are recommending, advising, encouraging sedition. Sedition is trying to overthrow or destabilize a monarchy or existing government. That's the textbook definition of it. And these people are doing that. They're telling people to get out and fight law enforcement after they take an oath of office. Now, that gets us into the problem. An oath of office doesn't mean anything if you can't enforce the oath. It's just words. Anybody can put their hand on a Bible or the Quran in some cases where the fools have allowed that, but they can swear an oath And it's just words unless you can enforce it. But we've never seen anybody removed for violating their oath of office. These people swear to uphold the constitutions of their states and the federal government, and they don't do it. When they're recommending that people actually physically accost and interfere with law enforcement officers from anywhere, they're violating their oath of office. And I don't even hear that discussed. These people should be removed. But no oath of office has any teeth in it. We have got to put some teeth in these oaths of office. Meanwhile, we've got the problem. If people don't hear that from media, if people don't wake up and hear Fox News or CNN saying that we need an oath of office strengthened, the public isn't going to pick it up because, unfortunately, we live in a world where 90% of the people on both sides, unfortunately, will not do anything unless somebody tells them to. But that's why this left is so effective right now. They've got an organizational structure that just amazes me. I've talked before in previous episodes about how back in the 80s I was frustrated by this. There's no ground game from the Republicans, and the Democrats were doing everything and firing up crowds, and they had their protesters, and they were in control. So I spent some time as a spy going to the Democrat meetings pretending that I wanted to be an activist just to see how they get that kind of help, because I was already going to the Republican meetings at state headquarters. I was in all of them. I was lobbying, I was talking to congressmen, and it was always me by myself. So I went into the Democrat Party stuff to see how it worked, and it was just amazing. If anybody wants to hear more about that, send me a comment. I might do a special episode just about that, what I learned when I was a spy inside the Democrat Party, because they were good back then, and they've gotten better now. That wasn't even the internet age. But right now, we saw the Republicans doing it during the Tea Party days. Why was that? Because all of the right-wing media was telling people, get out there, do this, join your groups, learn our Constitution. They were doing all the right things because they knew it sold. But it worked so well, people were talking, let's have a Tea Party party because the Republicans aren't representing us. But the Republicans managed to co-opt it, and boom, they blew up the Tea Party. They used it and threw it away. It lasted about 18 months altogether. Republicans and right-wing media shut that baby down right away because it threatened the existence and the perpetuity of the Republican Party. So they killed it off. So now we've got Democrats doing this on a street level that we've never seen before. And they're doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing this to destabilize America. They want America ungovernable under Trump. The whole Western world, all the bad guys, they know that their people, their good citizens, are watching Trump and they're supporting all of that. They want their own versions of MAGA. So it's important to the bad guys throughout the Western world, all the people that want to replace capitalism and freedom with socialism, they all want America ungovernable under Trump. That is what this is about. Never think these issues matter. The only thing that matters is America is ungovernable, because once people decide that it cannot be governed, they will say the system failed, we have to replace it, it just didn't work, it was written by a bunch of pudgy old white guys, they're a bunch of slave owners and it didn't work, they got it all wrong, we have to do something all over again. Unfortunately, that sells to that crowd. But the crowd is growing because they have a ground game. Right now, the process that they're using by using their media and the people in the neighborhoods and the people forming groups and building on the groups at street level, that's a Tea Party tactic. They are actually out Tea Partying the Tea Party people. There is nothing going on the Republican side. There is nothing happening. People are sitting around talking about midterms. And the problem is, when you talk to conservatives about this, and this is why this episode is not for the dumb people. When you talk to conservatives about this stuff, they say, we can't do that. We have jobs. We have families. Well, trust me, so do the lefties. They have jobs and families. That's why they do most of their big stuff on weekends. Everybody has time to do this. If you got time to sit in social media, you've got time to sit in social media and organize. not just complain, not just talk about what you saw. You've got time to organize if you have time to be online, if you have time to watch a movie at night, if you have time to go golfing on the weekends, if you have time to go out to dinner. You have got time. Everybody has time. But there's no leadership for us on that. And anybody who says, well, Trump should be doing it, Trump is doing enough. Okay, the guy has a job. It's not up to the president. The president should never be the one organizing street action of the free citizens. It's supposed to be the other way around. Trump is not an action leader, okay? He's a guy that gets stuff done in the government in the job that he was hired to do. It is not his job to organize the people. The party is supposed to be doing that. The DNC works with their people. They've turned it over to the bad guys, and the bad guys work through that. In the RNC, Republican National Committee side, Republican organization, there is nothing going on. Because when it did happen, it threatened the party. And they aren't going to risk that again, like the trouble they ran into with the Tea Party when people were talking about getting rid of the party. Hey, I'd like to remind you right now, I don't know if you're familiar with us, if you're new to us, but I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. We're a new channel. Moved everything over here from our old formats. This is just what we're focusing on because this is a lot of work. It really is. Anyway, appreciate you being here. If you want to help us grow, please hit like, subscribe, and most of all, the comments are really important too. So here we are. But people are comparing what's going on in America to the fall of Rome. If you know anything about history, this has nothing to do with the fall of Rome. It's not even similar. Both were world powers, the highest world powers. Rome collapsed, and we're headed toward a collapse. Otherwise, there is nothing at all in common with the fall of Rome. What we're looking at now is really like the end of the Bronze Age, because in the end of the Bronze Age, there wasn't one big thing that happened, but the whole age collapsed in about 50 years. Well, we're into about 60 years of this decline right now, from the hippie days of the 60s when all this activism, radical socialist activism really took hold. We're about 60 years into that right now. And we're getting close to the end of it for a couple of reasons. But in the Bronze Age, when that collapse happened, it happened because trade collapsed. The trade between all the nations around the Mediterranean, because back then that was a known world, they had a collapse. We're going to have the same kind of collapse. We're facing threats of the same kind of collapse as them. Because once you interrupted the trade network with invaders, once they upset the trade balance, all of a sudden people couldn't get the goods that they needed just to survive. Everything fell apart. That's where we're at right now. That's one of the reasons why Trump is so focused on trade. People get mad because he's working with all these different countries, like he's working over there with Qatar and all that. Truthfully, it's the ugly world we live in. Trump knows that we're headed for World War III. He's acutely aware. He knows more about it than we do. And for him to be taking steps like that he doesn't really like, it's obvious that the guy is trying to take as many countries off the enemy side as possible. He at least wants them to sit it out and not contest us, not contribute to that. That's why he's been so focused on breaking up the power structures in the Mideast. We've got China, we've got Russia, Iran, something's going to happen there real soon. North Korea, they're still there. They're still a dangerous problem. But Iran has replaced North Korea as the problem du jour. It doesn't matter. Trump knows this, but he can't stop the war that is coming. He's doing his damnedest. He's doing everything he can. World War III is not going to be anything like the wars that we saw in the past. We're too big to tackle. No one's going to try to invade America. But Europe, Australia, and America are already invaded. We already have. We talked for years about all the fighting age men coming into America, all the Chinese scientists. America has been such a stupid country. We've been letting people from China, which everyone calls an enemy country, we've been letting them send their youth here to learn science in the laboratories of our universities, and then they stay as trained scientists who can poison us, okay? They can develop technology or use existing technology to attack us. Our grid is vulnerable. Our power systems and water systems run on electronic automation, and these people are experts at it. We taught them how to be experts. We taught them how we're vulnerable. They've been hired into positions in these universities and these companies. They're in our economic system, they're in our science lab, they're everywhere. We've actually placed the enemy in positions of vulnerability for us. They just busted these big labs, biolabs, out in Las Vegas and California. They're Chinese people that have viruses that shouldn't even be here. They're scientifically developed viruses. They've got this. They're reporting on it now. Look it up. Chinese biolab. Just look that up. It's out there. Now, how many of these places do they have? They say there might be 500 of these scattered around the country. 500 Chinese biolabs. Well, how many old warehouses from industrial buildings that are shut down? How many of them have been bought by people related to Chinese or other foreign interests that are now jam-packed with weapons? Which warehouse in Dayton, Ohio, Columbia, Missouri, has 1 million Chinese drones in it, ready to go into action? What if there's 20 of these scattered around the country? You got to understand what we're up against. These people have had a free rein to plot against us within our own borders, sight unseen, for decades. We've uncovered a little bit of it, and now we found out that taxpayers have been financing a lot of this stuff, which I'm trying to tell everybody that since 2009, 2010, but people don't pay attention because they never heard it from media before. Now they're paying attention. They think it was just discovered. No, we knew. We knew in 2010. We knew back in the 90s. But people didn't pay attention until now. The problem we've got with World War III isn't the fact that we have to worry about the power of an army and all their navies and all of that stuff, although that'll all factor in. Of course, that's all going to matter. They're going to upset international trade. They will disrupt the trade because that plays on the psyche of all the nations that are damaged by it. It's like Sun Tzu said in The Art of War. He had 5 tenets that are generalized for all warfare that must be adhered to. And one of those is called moral influence. So what Sun Tzu talked about and what has been proven throughout all history is that if people are defeated, you don't have to defeat the army. The general that we negotiated with for the exit from Vietnam, our general got over there to meet with him and they said, there's no way you could ever defeat our armies. The North Vietnamese general that he was negotiating with looked at him and said, well, that's irrelevant now, isn't it? Because they defeated the minds of the American people. After the Tet Offensive, American media and the Democrat Party went nuts. All the hippies that didn't want to get drafted and actually have to go do something for the country, they lost their will to fight. That's why Sherman marched across from Atlanta to Savannah, the March to the Sea. It was to defeat the will of the people. The army was already beat, but the war went on because the people weren't defeated. Now, how long is it going to take to defeat Americans today when you can't get prescription drugs anymore because international trade has been disrupted? How long can people live without their prescriptions? How long can people live in apartment buildings in the cities without electricity, without the water? What happens? You don't have to defeat the army. You only have to defeat the people that put the army in the field. All you have to defeat is the mentality of the citizens at home. That's what you have to defeat to win a war, and that is what the goal is right now. They're trying to break down the psyche of the American people, the French people, the people in Greece, the people in Australia, the people in Belgium. It's happening all over. Spain has always stayed out of these situations as much as they can. Ever since the days when they were big with the Armadas, Spain hasn't been anything. They've tried to avoid the wars. Spain is in water crisis right now. How long does it take society to give up on a war to say, okay, we will negotiate, we will do something different, when the people can't turn on their faucets, when the bathroom doesn't work anymore? How long will a society last when the people can't get their water? How long will they withstand an enemy when they can't get water? They've got too many people for the water supplies they've got. We've got regions like that. You know how vulnerable that makes a society? Take, for instance, down there in the American Southwest. Phoenix is a classic example of what can happen. They're already having water issues. There's too many people down there for sustainability with the water supply they can provide. Well, what happens if somebody poisons that? You've got 6 million people down there or more that don't have water the next day. You know what the run would be like on the grocery stores and convenience stores? Now, what happens to the minds of those people? Of course, everybody back in the Midwest is unaffected, but look at the panic that's going to come out. Look what the media will do with it. We're beaten. We're beaten. They found out how to beat us. We're done. It's the moral influence. How you affect the minds of the people so the people decide they're defeated. Because if you do that, it doesn't matter how much the army can do, how many times we can blow up the entire planet. When the people decide there's nothing left to fight for. That's why they're out there every day convincing us that our system is so bad, that our president's so bad, that patriots are so bad. It's because they want to defeat the will of the people to defend what we have here, what they are trying to take away. We are so divided. Somebody must win, somebody must lose, but this is not sustainable. Throughout the Western world, it is not sustainable. We can't have people on the same block hating each other. We didn't have that in the other world wars. We've had nothing like this. Those, we're going to find out, weren't real world wars because it wasn't in the neighborhoods. There was always partisans fighting back here and there, but they were tiny little groups of resistance. There were people trying to assassinate Hitler. But it wasn't major. It wasn't half the country divided one way and half the other. That's where we're at right now. And everything they're doing right now is to make the West ungovernable. They're trying to defeat the Christian, capitalist, free world. All the way around, everywhere it exists, that's what they're trying to defeat. That never happened before in a world war. That's never happened in world history. That's where we're at. And right now, the only people that are fighting it are the left. They got their marching orders. They cooperate with each other. The Republicans have no ground game. Trump even came out and said the other day, if Christians want to save Christianity, they're going to have to do the work as Christians to do it, or they're going to lose it. He should have said that about the country. If the patriots of this country don't organize like they already proved they can do, they already proved they have time, they already proved they could do it with a family, they proved they could do it with a job, and they could do it very, very well. The Tea Party did that. 18 months of glorious patriotic ambition. And it worked so well, they quit doing it. In the Tea Party era, the patriots were saying, this is our country, this is our job. I am not going to leave this country, this mess, for my children. We are going to fix this on my watch. We are going to do it. It was unified. It was we. It was our children. It was our country. It was we. They were united and they were doing it. Now they think they can sit in the bleachers and Trump, the Messiah, is going to do it for them. They think he can do everything. All they got to do is cheer. And that is not how America was set up. The president doesn't have the power to do that. You have to have the people involved. You have to have the people actively resisting what the people from the bad guys are doing. Conservatives are hoping and praying that someone somewhere will fix everything for them. They want to win a fight that they don't show up for because they think if they just cheer for one hero to save them, then they've done their part. And they knew better during the Tea Party days. The very same people knew better. And now they want to win a fight they don't show up for. And that has never happened in world history. It's up to us. But without leadership, most people won't follow because most people are truly herd sheep. That's why this post is not going to be popular with the herd. It's just a fact. And unfortunately, that's the problem with truth. Nobody really wants to hear it unless you're just telling the truth about the bad guys, right? That's how it works out. I found that out a long time ago. Otherwise, people just tune it out. They don't want to hear it. It's not what they want to hear. But you can't make the bad guy go away because you covered up your eyes and plugged your ears. So that's where we're at right now. Trump can't be the leader of that. It's not even fair to ask him to be. I wish he'd spend more time telling us we need to do it because people would follow him. If he said, start a new Tea Party, start a new movement, people would do it. For some reason, he won't give the command. He likes to get out there and say, I'm going to save this, I'm going to save that. He doesn't even have the power to as president. He can't. There's certain things he can do, and he's doing them very well, except for this two-tiered justice system we're all mad about. However, we got bigger problems. That's not our biggest issue. We got bigger fish to fry because we're talking about the existence and sustainability of our nation and the American principles in general, because the same principles that apply in Europe and Australia, that of capitalism, freedoms and liberties, and Christianity and government, they're all under attack. That's what's going on, and that's why something as ugly as this two-tier justice system has to take a back seat. I'm not happy about it, but you got to pick your battles wisely. That one has to be on the back burner. We can bitch about that after we save this country, because right now we don't know if we're gonna, because the right isn't in the fight. The left is going nuts on a neighborhood level. They're getting worse every day. They're arming themselves. We've seen that. I hear too many conservatives say, well, we've got all the guns. No, we don't. You think those street gangs that are armed are MAGA voters? Is that what you think? You think that all those union people in the Democrat union plants and trade unions like the Carpenter Union, the Electrical Union, a lot of those guys are Democrats. Hardcore Democrats. I've argued with them. I've discussed it with them. They might be redneck. They might have some redneck tendencies. They might go out fishing and hunting and shooting and bow hunting, but they're still Democrats. Don't think that conservatives have all the guns, because that simply isn't true. We have police departments, state troopers, Army veterans that are hardcore lefties. You think they're not armed? We have got to step up. But this is nothing like anything we've seen before. We're too divided. We can't stay this divided without it blowing up. And it's like my grandma said, she escaped Germany because of World War I. She's always talking to me about the world wars. And I asked her one day, I was probably 8, 9 years old, Grandma, if the wars are so bad, why do they keep doing it? She says, well, she said, everyone knows there's problems. She says, but they push them aside. She said, they think that someone else is going to fix everything. And they keep thinking that. And then one day you wake up and the war started. And the world is different and it will never be the same. You can't go back and stop it. It's too late. Well, here we are again. The world didn't learn after World War I, the war to end all wars. And then we had World War II, and people still didn't learn. They saw it twice. People alive today were alive in World War II. It gets so bad, people can't live together, and the only way to have any kind of resolution, the only way to get out of the escalating problems is for a whole lot of people to die and a whole lot of national wealth to be destroyed, a lot of history destroyed, a lot of buildings, a lot of farm ground, a lot of industries, a lot of lives lost. It's the only way it gets solved when it gets to this point. And the nation has learned nothing, society has learned nothing, and those that forget history are doomed to repeat it, and we're going to repeat it now on a larger scale than anybody could ever imagine. It needs to happen because there's no other way of handling the bad guys. The only way someone can win and someone can lose is to have the conflict, but we cannot stay this divided. We're not going to. People can't live that way. The humankind is a species of war. We always have been. Unfortunately, bad guys always rise to the top and lead us into wars. That's where we're at. Thank God we've got Trump right now, because I want it to happen while he is still president. I really do. I want this to blow up while he's still president, because he's the one guy right now that I got confidence in could actually lead us. So pay attention, my friends, and realize this isn't going to be solved politically. Not when it's this deep into society. These people are serious and they're crazy and they hate us. They're living among you. You're sending your kids to be schooled by them. You're working with them. They are among us. We got to get this right, my friends, and if we do, maybe God will continue to bless this great country of ours. Thanks for listening.